Are you ready to ace your next DevOps interview? Kubernetes is the backbone of modern cloud-native infrastructure, but it's also one of the most challenging topics to master under pressure. In this video, we will cover Kubernetes interview questions and answers, DevOps interview prep. Master your Kubernetes interview with these 30 essential questions and detailed explanations. In this video, we break down 30 critical Kubernetes interview questions covering everything from architecture and networking to security and scheduling. Each question is designed to reflect real-world scenarios and exam-level difficulty. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe for more deep-dive technical interview prep. Which component of the Kubernetes control plane is responsible for maintaining the desired state of the cluster by reacting to changes? Option A, Kube Scheduler. Option B, Kube Controller Manager. Option C, etcd. Option D, Kube AppServer. The correct answer is B. The Kube Controller Manager is a daemon that embeds the core control loops shipped with Kubernetes. In applications of robotics and automation, a control loop is a non-terminating loop that regulates the state of the system. In Kubernetes, the controller manager tracks the current state of objects via the API server and makes changes to move the current state toward the desired state defined in the spec. For example, the replication controller ensures that the correct number of pods are running at all times. What is the smallest deployable unit of computing that you can create and manage in Kubernetes? Option A, container. Option B, service. Option C, pod. Option D, node. The correct answer is C. A pod is the smallest and simplest unit in the Kubernetes object model that you create or deploy. A pod represents a single instance of a running process in your cluster. It can contain one or more containers, such as Docker containers, with shared storage network resources, and a specification for how to run the containers. Containers within a pod are always co-located and co-scheduled, and run in a shared context. Which service type exposes the service on each node's IP at a static port? Option A, cluster IP. Option B, node port. Option C, load balancer. Option D, external name. The correct answer is B. A node port service is the most primitive way to get external traffic directly to your service. Node port, as the name implies, opens a specific port, usually in the range 30000-32767. On all nodes, the VMs, and any traffic that is sent to this port is forwarded to the service. While cluster IP is only accessible within the cluster, node port allows external access using the less than node IP greater than less than node port greater than combination. What happens to a persistent volume? PV. When its associated persistent volume claim, PVC, is deleted if the reclaim policy is set to written? Option A. The PV is immediately deleted from the storage provider. Option B. The PV is formatted and made available for a new PVC. Option C. The PV remains in released status and its data is kept intact. Option D. The PV is moved to available status automatically. The correct answer is C. The retain reclaim policy allows for manual reclamation of the resource. When the persistent volume claim is deleted, the persistent volume still exists and the volume is considered released. but it is not yet available for another claim because the previous claimant's data remains on the storage asset. An administrator must manually reclaim the volume by deleting the PV, cleaning up the data on the associated storage asset, or deleting the asset itself. Which component is the only one that communicates directly with the etcd database? Option A, kubelet. Option B, kube proxy. Option C, kube APA server. Option D, scheduler. The correct answer is C. The kube APA server is the front end for the Kubernetes control plane. It is designed to scale horizontally. For security and architectural integrity, the kube APA server is the only component that interacts with the etcd key value store. All other components, like the scheduler or controller manager, must go through the API server to query or update the state of the cluster. Which field in a pod specification allows you to ensure a pod only runs on nodes with specific labels? Option A, Node selector. Option B, affinity. Option C, taints. Option D, tolerations. The correct answer is A. Node selector is the simplest recommended form of node selection constraint. You add the node selector field to your pod specification and specify the key value pairs labels that the target node must have. If you need more complex rules, like logical OR or matching against labels not yet assigned, you would use node affinity. But node selector is the direct method for basic label matching. What is the primary difference between a deployment and a stateful set? Option A. Deployments cannot use persistent storage. Option B. Stateful sets provide unique network identifiers and stable storage for pods. Option C. Deployments are used for database clusters only. Option D. Stateful sets do not support rolling updates. The correct answer is B. Deployments are intended for stateless applications where pods are interchangeable. If a pod fails, it is replaced by a new one with a random name. Stateful sets are used for stateful applications that require stable, unique network identifiers, e.g., POD0, POD1, and persistent storage that stays with the pod identity even if the pod is rescheduled to a different node. This is critical for databases like Cassandra or MongoDB. Which Kubernetes resource manages external access to the services in a cluster, typically providing HTTP/HTTPS load balancing? Option A, service. Option B, endpoint slice. Option C, ingress. Option D, config map. The correct answer is C. An ingress is an API object that manages external access to the services in a cluster, typically HTTP. Ingress can provide load balancing, SSL termination, and name-based virtual hosting, while a service of type load balancer creates a cloud-specific load balancer for every service. An ingress acts as a smart router or entry point, allowing you to route multiple services through a single IP address using path-based or host-based rules. What does RBAC stand for in the context of Kubernetes security? Option A, remote-based access control. Option B, role-based access control. Option C, resource-based admission control. Option D, rule-based authentication center. The correct answer is B. Role-based access control, RBAC, is a method of regulating access to computer or network resources based on the roles of individual users within an enterprise. In Kubernetes, RBAC uses the RBAC.authorization.k8s.io API group to drive authorization decisions, allowing you to dynamically configure policies through the Kubernetes API. It consists of roles, permissions within a namespace, and role bindings, granting those permissions to users, groups. Which workload resource ensures that all, or some, nodes run a copy of a pod? Option A, replica set. Option B, job. Option C, daemon set. Option D, cron job. The correct answer is C. A daemon set ensures that all, or a specific subset of, nodes run a copy of a pod. As nodes are added to the cluster, pods are added to them. As nodes are removed from the cluster, those pods are garbage collected. Typical use cases for daemon sets include running a cluster storage daemon, like Glustered, a logs collection daemon, like Fluented, or a node monitoring daemon, like Prometheus Node Exporter. Which object is used to store non-confidential data in key-value pairs? Option A, secret. Option B, config map. Option C, persistent volume. Option D, service. The correct answer is B. A config map is an API object used to store non-confidential data in key-value pairs. Pods can consume config maps as environment variables, command line arguments, or as configuration files in a volume. Config maps allow you to decouple environment-specific configuration from container images, making your applications easily portable. For sensitive data like passwords or tokens, you should use secrets instead. What is the primary responsibility of the kubelet agent? Option A, managing network proxy rules on each node. Option B, ensuring that containers are running in a pod on a specific node. Option C, scheduling pods to nodes based on resource availability. Option D, storing the cluster state. The correct answer is B. The kubelet is the primary node agent that runs on each node. It works based on a pod spec, a YAML or JSON object that describes a pod. The kubelet takes a set of pod specs that are provided through various mechanisms, primarily from the API server, and ensures that the containers described in those pod specs are running and healthy. It does not manage containers which were not created by Kubernetes. In a deployment, what is the strategy used to replace old pods with new ones one by one? Option A, recreate. Option B, rolling update. Option C, blue-green. Option D, canary. The correct answer is B. The rolling update strategy is the default update strategy for deployments. It replaces the old pods with new ones gradually, ensuring that a certain number of pods are always available to serve traffic. You can tune this process using max unavailable, how many pods can be down during the update, and max surge, how many extra pods can be created above the desired count. What is the purpose of a network policy in Kubernetes? Option A, to assign IP addresses to pods. Option B, to define how groups of pods are allowed to communicate with each other and other network endpoints. Option C, to configure the DNS settings for the cluster. Option D, to manage the load balancer settings for a service. The correct answer is B. Network policy is a specification of how groups of pods are allowed to communicate with each other and other network endpoints. By default, pods are non-isolated. They accept traffic from any source. Network policies allow you to implement a zero-trust model where you explicitly allow traffic based on labels, namespaces, or IP blocks. Note that a network policy requires a networking plugin, CNI, that supports it, such as Calico or Cilium. Which of the following is not a valid component of a Kubernetes worker node? Option A, kubelet. Option B, kube proxy. Option C, container runtime. Option D, kube scheduler. The correct answer is D. The kube scheduler is a component of the control plane master node, not the worker node. The control plane consists of the API server, scheduler, controller manager, and etcd. The worker node typically runs the kubelet to manage pod lifecycle, kube proxy to manage networking, and the container runtime, like Docker, Containered, or CRI-O, to actually run the containers. What is an empty dir volume? Option A, a permanent storage volume that survives pod deletion. Option B, a temporary directory that is created when a pod is assigned to a node and exists as long as that pod is running on that node. Option C, a volume that connects to an external NFS server. Option D, a way to mount the host's root file system into a container. The correct answer is B. An empty dir volume is first created when a pod is assigned to a node and exists as long as that pod is running on that node. As the name says, the empty dir volume is initially empty. All containers in the pod can read and write the same files in the empty dir volume. When a pod is removed from a node for any reason, the data in the empty dir is deleted permanently. Which command is used to see the detailed configuration and status of a specific pod named myPod? Option A, kubectl get pod myPod. Option B, kubectl logs myPod. Option C, kubectl describe pod myPod. Option D, kubectl status pod myPod. The correct answer is C. While kubectl get pod gives you a high-level overview, status, restarts, age, kubectl describe pod provides a detailed report of the pod's lifecycle events, configuration, state of individual containers, and resource usage. It is the primary command used for troubleshooting why a pod might be stuck in pending or crash loop back off. What is the role of admission controllers in Kubernetes? Option A, they authenticate users via certificates. Option B, they intercept requests to the API server prior to persistence of the object, but after the request is authenticated and authorized. Option C, they manage the scheduling of pods to nodes. Option D, they are responsible for the encryption of etcd data at rest. The correct answer is B. Admission controllers are powerful plugins that can intercept, validate, and even modify requests to the Kubernetes API server. They act as a gatekeeper. For example, the Limit Ranger admission controller ensures pods don't exceed resource limits, while the Node Restriction controller limits what a kubelet can modify. They run after authentication and authorization are complete. How are secrets stored within the etcd database by default in many basic Kubernetes installations? Option A. Encrypted using AES 256. Option B. Plaintext. Base 64 encoded. Option C. Hashed using SHA 256. Option D. They are not stored in etcd. The correct answer is B. By default, Kubernetes secrets are stored unencrypted in the API server's underlying data store. etcd. Base 64 encoding is not encryption. It is easily reversible. For a production-grade cluster, it is highly recommended to enable encryption at rest for secrets so that even if the etcd backup is compromised, the sensitive data remains protected. Which probe is used to determine when a container is ready to start accepting traffic? Option A. Liveness probe. Option B. Readiness probe. Option C. Startup probe. Option D. Health probe. The correct answer is B. The readiness probe is used to know when a container is ready to start accepting traffic. A pod is considered ready when all of its containers are ready. If a readiness probe fails, the endpoints controller removes the pod's IP address from the endpoints of all services that match the pod. This is useful when an application needs to load large datasets or perform warm-up tasks before serving requests. Which probe is used to determine if a container needs to be restarted because it has entered a broken state? Option A. Liveness probe. Option B. Readiness probe. Option C. Startup probe. Option D. Restart probe. The correct answer is A. The liveness probe indicates whether the container is running. If the liveness probe fails, the kubelet kills the container, and the container is subjected to its restart policy. If a container does not provide a liveness probe, the default state is success. This is used to catch deadlocks where an application is running but unable to make progress. What is the horizontal pod autoscaler, HPA, based on by default? Option A. Number of active users. Option B. CPU utilization. Option C. Available disk space. Option D. Network latency. The correct answer is B. The horizontal pod autoscaler automatically scales the number of pods in a replication controller. Deployment, replica set, or stateful set based on observed CPU utilization. It can also be configured to scale based on custom metrics or other system-provided metrics, like memory utilization. But CPU is the standard default and most common use case. What does a taint do when applied to a node? Option A. It forces pods to be scheduled on that node. Option B. It marks the node as unhealthy. Option C. It allows a node to repel a set of pods unless those pods have a matching toleration. Option D. It increases the priority of the node. The correct answer is C. Taints and tolerations work together to ensure that pods are not scheduled onto inappropriate nodes. One or more taints are applied to a node. This marks that the node should not accept any pods that do not tolerate the taints. Tolerations are applied to pods and allow, but do not require, the pods to schedule onto nodes with matching taints. What is core DNS in the context of Kubernetes? Option A. The container runtime used by Kubernetes. Option B. The default cluster DNS server that provides service discovery. Option C. The component that manages IP addresses for nodes. Option D. The API server gateway. The correct answer is B. Core DNS is a flexible, extensible DNS server that can serve as the Kubernetes cluster DNS. Since Kubernetes 1.13, it is the default DNS service. It allows pods to discover other services within the cluster using names like my-service.my namespace.svc, cluster, local, instead of hard-coded IP addresses, which can change. Which workload resource is best suited for a one-off task that should run to completion? Option A, deployment. Option B, replica set. Option C, job. Option D, stateful set. The correct answer is C. A job creates one or more pods and will continue to retry execution of the pods until a specified number of them successfully terminate. As pods successfully complete, the job tracks the successful completions. When a specified number of successful completions is reached, the task, job, is complete. This is different from a deployment, which aims to keep pods running forever. What is the Cloud Controller Manager responsible for? Option A. Managing the local Docker daemon. Option B. Interacting with the underlying cloud provider's API for things like load balancers and routes. Option C. Scheduling pods to different cloud regions. Option D. Providing a web interface for the cluster. The correct answer is B. The Cloud Controller Manager lets you link your cluster into your cloud provider's API and separates the components that interact with that cloud platform from components that only interact with your cluster. It handles tasks like creating a cloud load balancer when a type load balancer service is created, or managing cloud-specific storage volumes. What is a sidecar container? Option A. A container that runs on the master node. Option B. A secondary container within a pod that enhances or assists the main application container. Option C. A container used only for testing. Option D. A backup container that starts only when the main container fails. The correct answer is B. Sidecar is a design pattern where a second container is added to a pod to extend the functionality of the main application. Common examples include a logging agent, like Fluentd, that ships logs from the main container, a proxy for service mesh, like Envoy and Istio, or a config reloader that watches for config map changes and signals the main app. What is the difference between a cluster role and a role? Option A. A role is global, while a cluster role is namespace specific. Option B. A role is namespace specific, while a cluster role is cluster-wide. Option C. Cluster roles are only for admin users. Option D. Roles cannot be used with service accounts. The correct answer is B. In the Kubernetes RBAC API, a role contains rules that represent a set of permissions within a specific namespace. If you want to define a role within a namespace, use a role. If you want to define a role cluster-wide, or for non-namespaced resources like nodes, you use a cluster role. A cluster role can also be used to grant access to namespaced resources across all namespaces. Which component is responsible for maintaining network rules on nodes and performing connection? Forwarding? Option A. Kubelet. Option B, Kube Proxy. Option C, Kube App Server. Option D, Ingress Controller. The correct answer is B. Kube Proxy is a network proxy that runs on each node in your cluster. Implementing part of the Kubernetes service concept, it maintains network rules using IP tables, IPVS, or NF tables on nodes. These network rules allow network communication to your pods from network sessions inside or outside of your cluster. What does the namespace object provide in Kubernetes? Option A, physical isolation of hardware. Option B, a way to divide cluster resources between multiple users or teams. Option C, a method to encrypt pod-to-pod communication. Option D, a storage location for container images. The correct answer is B. Namespaces are intended for use in environments with many users spread across multiple teams or projects. They provide a scope for names and a way to divide cluster resources via resource quotas. Names of resources must be unique within a namespace, but not across namespaces. Note that namespaces provide logical isolation, not physical or strict security isolation, unless combined with network policies. That concludes our top 30 Kubernetes interview questions. Understanding these concepts is key not just for interviews, but for managing production-grade clusters effectively. If you found this helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe. If you have questions about any of the answers, drop a comment below and I'll do my best to help. For a complete set of practice exams and in-depth labs, check the full course link in the description below.